8 signs your brain is adapting. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that has nothing to do with sleep. You wake up after a full night and still feel like you've been carrying something heavy for a long time. You find yourself going quiet in conversations that used to energize you. You notice that certain things that once bothered you, really got under your skin, barely register anymore. And instead of feeling relieved about that, some part of you wonders if something is wrong. Most people brush past this. They call it burnout or aging or just life. They assume the flatness is a personal failure, a sign that they've somehow lost their spark, their sensitivity, their ability to care the way they used to. They start apologizing for themselves in quiet ways, to their partners, to their friends, occasionally to themselves at the end of a long day. But what if that's not what's happening at all? What's rarely talked about and almost never explained correctly is that many of the things people treat as symptoms of decline are actually evidence of something precise and purposeful happening inside the brain. The detachment, the recalibrated reactions, the strange new ability to sit with discomfort that once would have undone you. These aren't signs that something is breaking down, they're signs that something is adapting. And that distinction changes everything. The brain is not a fixed object. It is a living, continuously updating prediction machine. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity, the brain's structural ability to rewire itself based on experience. But what that clinical word fails to capture is how quietly and completely this process shapes the way you feel, respond, and move through the world. The brain doesn't adapt in dramatic moments. It adapts in the space between moments, in the repetition, in the accumulating weight of everything you've been asked to absorb. When a stimulus is repeated, stress, conflict, emotional intensity, uncertainty, the brain begins to treat it differently. The amygdala, which registers threat and emotional significance, gradually modulates its response. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for regulation and context, develops stronger connections to the limbic system. What this looks like from the inside is a kind of dampening. Things that once felt like emergencies begin to feel manageable. Sometimes they begin to feel like almost nothing at all. This is not numbness, it is efficiency. The brain has learned that this particular signal does not require the same level of alarm it once did. And this learning starts early, long before anyone could name it. The nervous system of a child is extraordinarily sensitive, designed to be. It is calibrating itself against the environment it finds itself in, building a map of what is safe, what demands vigilance, and what level of emotional response is appropriate for the conditions it faces. A child who grew up in a home with instability, unpredictability, or high emotional intensity didn't choose to adapt. The nervous system adapted because it had to. The child who learned to read the room, to go still before the storm arrived, to feel less because feeling more was too costly, that child's brain was not broken, it was brilliant. It was doing exactly what brains are designed to do, survive the environment they are actually in. And that adaptation doesn't simply switch off when the environment changes. The nervous system carries its history, not as memory exactly, but as pattern, as orientation, as the particular shape of a person's relationship to intensity, to conflict, to closeness, to rest. This is worth saying clearly. None of this is better or worse. Nervous systems that stayed sensitive, that continued to feel things acutely and respond with full emotional range, those aren't superior. And nervous systems that learn to quiet themselves, to create distance, to process slowly and internally, those aren't damaged. They are different maps of the same territory, drawn under different conditions. There is no correct configuration. But here is the part that most people miss, the part that tends to land quietly and then stay with you. Adaptation is not the same as resolution. The brain learns to carry something without reacting to it. That is genuinely useful, but carrying and completing are different things. The person who no longer flinches at conflict may have adapted to conflict without ever having processed it. The person who feels almost nothing when they probably should feel something may have developed an extraordinary capacity for regulation, and also may have, somewhere along the way, lost access to signals they actually need. The adaptation works, and the adaptation costs. Both things are true at the same time. There's something else worth noticing. Adaptation tends to be invisible to the person inside it. From the outside, someone might describe you as calm, composed, hard to read. From the inside, you may simply feel like the volume has been turned down on your own life without your permission. The brain is efficient. It doesn't always distinguish between a threat it's learned to manage and a joy it's learned to underreact to. When the system quiets, it tends to quiet broadly. This is the quiet paradox at the center of all of this. The same neurological process that made you more resilient may also be making it harder to fully access what you love, what moves you, what feels worth protecting. Not because you don't care, but because the brain built a wall against feeling too much, and walls, by their nature, don't let everything through. None of this means something is irreparably wrong. The same plasticity that created these adaptations is present right now. The brain that rewired itself under pressure can continue to rewire, not back to what it was, because that isn't how this works, but forward into something that holds both the resilience and the range. That's not a motivational statement, it's just how the biology works. The structure can change. It changes slowly, with consistent experience, with safety, with repetition of a different kind, but it changes. If you've been going through a period where the signs feel more visible, the quiet exhaustion, the reduced reactivity, the sense of watching your life from a slight distance, it doesn't mean you've lost something permanent. It may mean your nervous system has been doing its job for a very long time without a break. It may mean you've been in an environment for months or years or longer that asked more of your system than it could process in real time, and the brain, as it always does, responded. It adapted. That's not a flaw in the design, that's the design. You are not numb because you stopped caring. You are not disconnected because something is fundamentally wrong with you. And you are not losing yourself because you've changed. The brain you have right now is the brain that has been paying close attention to your life. Every adaptation it made was a response to something real. Every quiet recalibration was, in its own way, a form of protection. That's worth sitting with for a moment, not to feel better about it necessarily, just to see it clearly, to understand that the experience you've been having, the experience that probably doesn't have a simple name, has a logic to it, and that logic, once you can see it, tends to change the relationship you have with what you've been carrying. There's more to explore here, the way the brain signals when an adaptation has outlived its original purpose, the patterns that tend to appear in people who have been operating in high-demand environments for extended periods, the difference between what adaptation looks like from the outside and what it feels like from the inside. If any part of this felt true, not like information you were being given, but like something you already knew and were simply hearing named for the first time, there's more where that came from.